Wake up this beautiful morning, enjoy the freshness of the breeze, into the beautiful garden. Tell me what's the banana tree. I hear they talk for morning time. Everybody wake up morning time. They come from mountain, they come from mountain, they come from mountain time. They come from mountain, they come from mountain time. They
There we
come
go.
from mountain, they come from mountain, from
Oh yes, they always come from mountainside. Yes, Madam Thelma. Watch the banana trees. Yes, we want to say good morning once again. welcome to welcome. Join us around the table this morning. And before we get started we have a full plate here this morning. But before we get started, we're going to do our daily readings, wisdom teachings that come from our ancient ancestors. When a man teaches, he speaks to the future. When a man teaches, he speaks to the future. Speak ma'at and do ma'at. Speak ma'at and do ma'at. We know ma'at is the ancient symbol for truth, right, and justice. Yes, truth, right, and justice. And to these we may add balance, harmony, and reciprocity. Balance, harmony, and reciprocity. Strive for excellence in all you do, so that no fault can be found in your character. Strive for excellence in all you do, so that no fault can be found in your character. It is in the development of character that instruction succeeds. It is in the development of character that instruction succeeds. Do ma'at, that you might live long upon the earth. Do ma'at, that you might live long upon the earth. Ma'at is that which endures and raises a person and a people up. Ma'at is that which endures and raises a person and a people up. Sweeter is the water of one who has given than the wine of one who has received. Sweeter is the water of one who has given than the wine of one who has received. Do to the doer that he may also do. do to the doer, that he may also do. Let your generosity reach one who needs it. Let your generosity reach one who needs it. It is not food or wealth which sustains a people and a community. It is righteousness. It is not food or wealth which sustains a people and a community. It is righteousness. When character is lost, all is lost. When character is lost, all is lost. The ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. The ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. And those are some of the great wisdom teachings that comes from our ancient ancestors. And let me just add for a little bit of clarity, a little bit of information. These wisdom teachings that I have been reading now for quite a while, I have had to go through a couple of books in order to pick out these wisdom teachings, because you don't find all these wisdom teachings that I'm reading, you wouldn't find all of them in one book. But the book that I have found many of these teachings and other similar sayings and wisdom teachings and adages and maxims is a book by Maulana Ron Karenga. And the name of the book is The Book of the Coming Forth by Day. The Book of the Coming Forth by Day by Maulana Ron Karenga. The Book of the Coming Forth by Day is the proper and correct name for this or these collection of writings and teachings and doctrines, especially spiritual and religious doctrines. The correct and proper name for the collection is the Book of the Coming Forth by Day and by Night. You will find that most people, especially the Eurocentric writers, will call the book the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But I can assure you that this collection of writing, these writings and this book has nothing to do, per se, with the dead. The book is all about life. But as we know, living and dying is part of the life cycle. But the book is not about, it's not a book of the dead. That's an incorrect name. It is the wrong name. Most people refer to it as the Book of the Dead. You will see it in print most times as the Book of the Dead, but that's the incorrect name. It is the wrong name. The proper and true name for these collections of writings is called the Book of the Coming Forth by Day and by Night. And Professor Molanga Ran Karenga made a translation from the Egyptian hieroglyphs along with writings that were done by Ernest Wallace Budge. He was the first European to translate these writings. Ernest Wallace Budge, an Englishman from England. And Karenga did his own translation. and he entitled it the book of the common foot, and that is where I got many of these wisdom teachings from. You would have to read through the book, and you come across them in different sections of the book where he talks about different areas, different things. But that is the book that where you will find most of them. You will find a lot of them, but you probably will not find all of them because I had to look in some other books by other writers to uh, find some of these wisdom teachings. Okay, so that's just a little bit of information for those who might be interested in trying to find them or want to look them up and read them for themselves. All right, well, this morning, before we go any further, I just want to send out my condolences to all those people who have lost loved ones, have lost relatives, family these past few weeks. I know that quite a few people have passed within the few weeks here, and quite a few of them are personal friends of mine, and especially musicians. And I've noticed a few days ago, I was speaking with Neville James, former Senator Neville James. He runs a program on a different station, and we touched on that issue, the fact that so many of these culture bearers are passing away. We, early up in the year, we had the passing of Bully. We had the passing of Mr. Ronald Russell, ex-Senator Ronald Russell. Then we had the passing of Adjoa, Claudette Young. Uh, then we had the passing of Mr. Bradley Christian. And now we want to, give tribute to the passing of Mr. Isidore I.G. Griles, personal friend. And please forgive me if I forgot any names, but sometimes it's just when you start reading things off like this and you start trying to remember things, you end up forgetting certain things also. And trying so hard to remember certain things, then you neglect certain other things. But yes, I just want us to know condolences and sympathies to the family, friends, and all the fellow musicians uh, on the passing of Mr. Isidore Griles, known to us as IG, and known but to some others, is more of his older peers, older fellows in Frederickstead knew him as Junie Griles, okay? Because yes, he was a junior. So some people, the older folks, know him as Junie Griles. Um, for us, the musicians who uh, have played music with him over the years, we know him as IG. And he played the steel triangle in the Quebec bands. He also played the squash and also did some vocals. He also did some singing of the old time songs. Yes, and so um, condolences and sympathies out to my good friend IG, Isidore Griles, on his passing. I also want to remember briefly a friend of mine. I don't know how true it is, but someone told me that not a friend of mine, not a musician friend, but a friend of mine named Darian, and I just don't know Darian's last name, but he lived over in Catherine's Rest. I knew him for many years. I knew him for many, many years, and I couldn't forget the name because I have a brother with that name also, Darian. So, but this Darian I'm talking about is Darian that lives in Catherine's Rest, and someone told me yesterday that he had passed. I don't know how true it is, but if he did, I want to extend my condolences and my sympathies to his friends, family, and relatives. Okay. Uh, um, basically, that's takes care of the people who have passed away. I can't bring my mind to remember anyone else, but I know these two close three people who have been close to me. Ajua Carter Young, who was a vocalist extraordinaire. She wasn't a Kwebe musician, but she was just a musician, mostly in the field of jazz music, and she was a singer, uh, very good singer. And I remember, keep fond memories of her. And Mr. Bradley Christian, another personal friend, who was a Kwebe flow master. But more than anything else, he was an instructor. He was a teacher. He taught the dance for many years, many, many years. He taught the art form of quadrille dancing, and also the head tying was a specialty of his, along with his expertise in the culinary arts. Yes, Mr. Bradley Christian. And again, we want to say condolences to IG, Juni Giles. Okay, well, today we want to do some reading. We want to another discussion. If anyone wants to call and chime in and ask questions or offer their opinion or whatever information they might have and they want to contribute, they're welcome to do so. I want to speak a little bit about the going back in time. We want to speak a little bit about the Library of Alexandria. The Library of Alexandria was located in the city of Alexandria, Egypt, which is located on the northern coast of North Africa. And this is what we want to deal with. I have been preparing notes and going over stuff for quite a while now because it's an issue that I wanted to touch on. Because mainly for two reasons. The reason that many people are not too informed on the significance and the importance of the Library of Alexandria. And then also, the second reason is that there have been some misinformation that has been spread about the Library of Alexandria. And so we want to clear up some of that. We want to present a different perspective and a different view based on facts. So we want to deal a little bit on the show here with the Library of Alexandria. And I'm going to read I'm going to read from two books. One book I'm going to read, one is a great book. The name of the book is Introduction to African Civilizations by John G. Jackson. Yes, the Introduction to African Civilizations, what I still believe is a great book, and it's a good book for a beginner to start out reading and trying to gain knowledge on African history and to a certain extent, world history, and which will eventually lead you into Caribbean history and Virgin Islands history. So we are going to do some reading basically on this Library of Alexandria. And the Library of Alexandria was located in the city, the ancient city of Alexandria. And Alexandria was a ancient city in Egypt, located on the north coast of Africa. And I am going to do some reading, and so we could get a good understanding and good. But before we get into necessarily the reading, we want to provide a little context. The Library of Alexandria was actually, and the city of Alexandria was built by Alexander the Great after he conquered Egypt. And he conquered Egypt in 332 BC. Yes, he conquered Egypt in 332 BC. Alexander the Great started to build the city, a new city in Egypt, and a city that was to be named after himself. But he left Egypt, went back to Greece, never returned to Africa. And the building of the city of Alexandria was left up to the person who became the king of Egypt after Alexander passed away. After Alexander the Great passed away, one of his generals, an individual by the name of Ptolemy, who was Ptolemy the First, became the king of Egypt and basically ruled from the city of Alexandria. Ptolemy the First would have been the one who continued the building of the city and the building of the library, the Great Library of Alexandria. He continued, it was under his reign that the city was completed and the library was completed. Okay, and the library of Alexandria was possibly in a time in the world the greatest repository of written information. All the books from all of the known parts of the world at that time were collected and housed at the Library of Alexandria, including all of the papyrus and other written documents of the ancient Kemites, otherwise known as the ancient Egyptians. All of this information was housed in the Library of Alexandria. There was no other library in the world at the time that had more information and more collections of rare books and rare materials than the Library of Alexandria. And as the book Introduction to African Civilizations say, the glories of the city of Alexandria were the museum and the library, institutions which outshone by far the superb palaces, temples, and theaters of the great city. In the establishment of the museum and the famous library, which was an adjunct of the museum, Ptolemy I had in view three objectives: the perpetuation of extant knowledge, number two, the increase of such knowledge, and number three, the diffusion of knowledge. On the abdication of Ptolemy I, his son Ptolemy II, otherwise known as Ptolemy Philadelphus, ascended the throne of Egypt in the year 285 BC. And during his reign, which lasted from 285 to 247 BC, Alexandria entered its golden age, The coronation of Ptolemy II was an affair of great pomp and ceremony. The chief librarian of Ptolemy II was a man named Callimachus, and one of his projects was a collection of literature embracing the sacred books of the Ethiopians, Indians, Persians, Elamites, Babylonians, Assyrians, Romans, Phoenicians, Syrians, and Greeks. The chief librarian was ordered by the king to buy whatever books he could get at the expense of the government. All books brought into Egypt by foreigners were taken to the museum. Correct copies of such works were made by a corps of transcribers. A copy was given to the owner, and the original was placed in the library. Well, imagine that. That was a little disingenuous, but that is what Ptolemy did. If you came into the country with books that they didn't have, you were required to present those books to the museum or the Library of Alexandria. And there, transcribers would make copies of your book. And when they're finished, they would give you a copy and they would keep the original, which was placed in the library. Wow, that was something else, I tell you. But anyway, let's continue. Sometimes large sums of money were paid for books. Ptolemy Euergetes obtained from a citizen of Athens the works of Sophocles, Euripides, and Aeschylus. And to the owner he returned transcripts of the books plus an indemnity of $15,000. The library boasted a large and fine collection of books, the total running to over 400,000 volumes. The museum was in fact a university containing faculties of astronomy, mathematics, literature, and medicine, and connected with the museum were an astronomical observatory, a chemical laboratory, and an anatomical dissection room. The scientists and scholars of the museum especially distinguished themselves in the fields of mathematics, astronomy, and geography. One of the shining lights of the museum was the mathematician Euclid, author of quote unquote geometry, still taught in our schools. Ptolemy I asked Euclid to simplify the study of geometry so that he could learn it without too much effort. And to this request, Euclid replied, "In geometry, there are no special path for kings." Oh, he said, in geometry, there is no special path for kings. Also connected with the museum was the mathematician Apollonius, author of treatises on conic sections. The famous mathematician and physicist Archimedes and Eratosthenes, who was both an astronomer and a geographer. Greatest among the astronomers was Hipparchus and Ptolemy. Another astronomer of note was Sosigenes, who revised the Egyptian calendar at the behest of Julius Caesar, and hence was the true author of the Julian calendar. At the museum were also engineers and inventors, such as Ctesibius, who invented a single cylinder fire engine, while his pupil Hero improved this engine by constructing it with two cylinders. This same Hero invented the first steam engine, the forerunner of the modern steam turbine. As a center of scientific research, the museum flourished for 100 years, then went into a decline. The Library of Alexandria survived until it was burnt by a Roman army led by Julius Caesar in 48 BC, the year 48 BC. The library was largely restored by the Romans by importing books from other libraries, especially that of King Eumenes of Pergamum, whose library was presented to Queen Cleopatra by Mark Antony. This second Alexandrian library was destroyed by fanatical Christian monks in the year 389 AD and was never rebuilt. The story of the destruction of the library by Arab invaders in the 7th century is totally false, since there was at that time no library in Alexandria for them to destroy. By the time Alexandria's period of progress had come to an end, the Romans had become the new custodians of civilization. Among the great inventions of the Egyptians were the alphabet, paper, ink, and the pen. The first paper was made of thin strips of papyrus reeds pasted together. Ink was made from vegetable gum and soot mixed with water. By dipping a pointed reed into the ink, the Egyptian scribe wrote messages on the papyrus sheet. Writing was a basic invention, and its influence on the evolution of civilization was profound. The invention of writing and of a convenient system of records on paper, says the historian Breasted, has had a greater influence in the uplifting of the human race than any other intellectual achievement in the career of man. And right now, we're going to take a break at the top of the hour to pay homage to our sponsors and make some money for the station. welcome back. Welcome to another Friday morning gathering of Around the Table here with your host, Dimitri by Pete Copeman. Time in the studio is about 7 minutes after the hour of o'clock. Yes, and we'll continue with our reading here about the Library of Alexandria. To give a little background information on it and in context. Again, we're going to repeat some of it. Here, repeated some of the same things some of the same information that I went over already. In the 4th century BC, the Great Library of Alexandria was founded in Egypt by the first king of the Ptolemaic dynasty. A half century later, this library housed a fine collection of about 1 million volumes. And I'm reading from the book Introduction to African Civilizations by John G. Jackson. In these books was gathered the knowledge of the ancient world, and it included valuable works in science, mathematics, technology, literature, and history. In the 4th century BC, a Roman army under Julius Caesar invaded Egypt. The citizens of Alexandria resisted the incursion of the Romans, and in the resulting battle, about a third of the library was destroyed. Julius Caesar called a meeting of the leading citizens of Alexandria, and he blamed them for the damage to the library. His position was that they should not have resisted him. Interesting, eh? So because the citizens of Alexandria resisted him, he paid them back with destruction. After the days of Julius Caesar, the Library of Alexandria was rebuilt and enlarged, and as far as possible, the lost manuscripts were restored. Then came the rise to power of the early Christian church. The leaders of the primitive Christian church were, for the most part, ignorant and bigoted religious fanatics who embarked on a course of promoting faith and destroying knowledge. The leader of the Christian party in Alexandria in 389 AD was Bishop Theophilus, who, at the head of a mob of Christian monks, destroyed what was left of the great library of Alexandria. On the death of Theophilus, he was succeeded in the bishopric of Alexandria by his nephew, Saint Cyril, who was even worse than his late uncle. In the early part of the 5th century of the Christian era, Hypatia, the daughter of Theon, the mathematician, conducted an academy in Alexandria. This talented lady gave lectures on the philosophies of Plato and Aristotle, and instructed her students on the works of Apollonius and other geometers. Bishop Cyril decided that such knowledge must be suppressed, and he proceeded to take the necessary steps to achieve that objective. The great tragedy that befell Hypatia is best described by an eminent historian of science who informs us. Each day before her academy stood a long train of chariots. Her lecture rooms were crowded with the wealth and fashion of Alexandria. They came to listen to her discourses on those questions which man in all ages has asked, but which never yet have been answered. Questions such as, what am I? Where am I? What can I know? Hypatia and Cyril, philosophy and bigotry. They cannot exist together. So Cyril felt, and on that feeling he acted. As Hypatia repaired to her academy, she was assaulted by Cyril's mob, a mob of many monks. They stripped her naked in the street. She was dragged into a church and there killed by the club of Peter the Reader. Now, let me show you that here. These men supposed to be religious men. They stripped the woman naked and drag her in a church and kill her inside the church. Wow. The corpse was cut into pieces. The flesh was scraped from the bones with shells, and the remnants cast into a fire. For this frightful crime, Cyril was never called to account. Henceforth, there was to be no freedom for the human thought. Everyone must think as the ecclesiastical authority ordered him in 414 AD. Again, let me just say that henceforth there was to be no freedom for the human thought or the human way of thinking. Everyone must think as the ecclesiastical authority ordered him to do in the year 414 AD. In Athens itself, philosophy awaited its doom. Justinian at length prohibited its teaching and caused all its schools in that city to be closed. And that is what happened with the Library of Alexandria there. And that's according to John G. Jackson in his book, The Introduction to African Civilizations. Now, I'm going to read a little bit from Anthony Browder's book, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilizations. And this is what he has to say. In the year 295 BC, King Ptolemy I, the successor to Alexander the Great, issued a proclamation declaring that all the books of the world and the key writings of all nations be placed within one repository in the city of Alexandria, Egypt. The Latin politician Quintilius, a student of Aristotle, was given the task of overseeing the administration of a vast educational complex which consisted of the museum, a research center, the Temple of Serapis, and the famed Library of Alexandria. It has been acknowledged by Western scholars that this facility established the foundations for the systematic study of mathematics, physics, biology, astronomy, literature, geography, and medicine. It is because of this heritage that many scientific, legal, and religious terms retain their original Latin names, even though it is now considered a dead language. And we can see that especially in the legal, they still use a whole lot of Latin terms and Latin terminologies. The creation of this new center of learning was due in part to Alexander's conquering of Egypt and the closing of the numerous temples and universities that were situated along the Nile River. Hundreds of thousands of papyrus scrolls were taken to Alexandria, where they were translated, cataloged into 10 subject areas, arranged alphabetically by author, and stored in the 10 research halls designated for specific fields of study. More than 500,000 books were amassed during a period of 2 generations, and that number increased to more than 700,000 books over succeeding years. The library also contained an observatory, dissecting rooms, botanical gardens, a zoo, and lecture halls. In addition to the texts that were taken from Kemet, the Ptolemies allocated tremendous sums of money for their librarians and purchased books from various parts of the known world. Commercial ships that docked in the thriving seaport of Alexandria were often searched by the military and their books confiscated. Agents were dispatched from Alexandria to various countries where they often purchased and acquired numerous books through various nefarious means. Wow, son. Egyptian historians uh, have stated that not that ancient Egyptian historians stated that not all of the acquisitions were obtained honorably. For example, Ptolemy III gave the city of Athens a substantial amount of silver as collateral for the safe return of the original manuscripts of Aeschylus, Euripides, and Sophocles, which were to be copied in Alexandria. After the library's dictationists read the contents of the manuscripts to the scribes, who made several copies of each, Ptolemy III returned the facsimiles and kept the originals in Alexandria, much to the displeasure of the outraged Athenians. For more than 600 years, this site was the command center for the world's scientific and cultural development. Euclid, the reputed father of mathematics, studied in Alexandria and later wrote a book entitled The Principles of Mathematics, which was to have a profound impact 2,000 years later on a 12-year-old boy named Albert Einstein. Heron invented gear trains and steam engines and authored the first book on robotics called Automata, I should say. Apollonius was a mathematician who demonstrated the forms of the conic sections. Hipparchus was an astronomer who mapped the constellations and estimated the intensity of stars. Galen was a dominant figure in the medical field. His books on healing and anatomy were used until the European Renaissance. The library was also a center for religious research. It was where Hellenized Jewish scholars produced the first Greek translation of the Old Testament, a book that was called the Septuagint. Eratosthenes, and I could just elaborate on that. Yes, it was at the Library of Alexandria that Ptolemy II, king of Egypt in the 3rd century BC, commissioned 70 Hebrew elders to be gathered in the city of Alexandria at the Library of Alexandria, and they were commissioned to write a Greek language copy of their sacred works, their religious and sacred works. They took about 2 years to do that. And at the end of that period, they produced a book that was called the Septuagint. The Septuagint is a Greek word that means 70. The Septuagint became the basis for what we know as the Old Testament in the Bible. It was first written in Greek. The Hebrews had no written information of their own at that time from which to copy or transcribe from. Historians like to falsely claim and incorrectly claim that they were making copies, they were translating. They were not translating. What they translate was Egyptian documents. When those Hebrew scholars gathered in Alexandria, they saw an advantage where they could write themselves into history, where they could finally become a nation and have respect among other people and other nations. They sat in the Library of Alexandria and they copied Egyptian documents, Egyptian philosophy, Egyptian spirituality, Egyptian scientific information. All of that they had at their disposal. And they copied it, and actually they did a poor job. They chopped it up and perverted it, and they came up with a writing that they called the Septuagint. And that Septuagint became the basis for what we know as the Old Testament. And that is one reason why you could see in the Old Testament, Egypt is mentioned something like over 500 times, so between 500 to 700 times, the word Egypt is mentioned in the Old Testament. Why is Egypt mentioned so many times if it's not because of some great importance? If something is not important, you are going to mention it over 700 times in your sacred books, in your sacred writings? No, you won't do that. It is because of its importance and its significance why it would be mentioned something like over 700 times alone in the Old Testament. But let's continue with the reading. Eratosthenes, an Egyptian mathematical scientist and archaeologist, was one of the most famous alumni of this renowned educational center. He rediscovered the formula for measuring the circumference of the earth after stumbling upon an ancient document taken from Syene in Upper Egypt. Eratosthenes was a master of many disciplines. In addition to his fame as an astronomer, philosopher, historian, poet, and theater critic, he was also head librarian of the Library of Alexandria. Excuse me. There is no doubt that access to the accumulated wisdom of the Nile Valley scholarship helped to create the foundations upon which scholars such as Eratosthenes, Galen, Euclid, Dionysius, and hundreds of others stood. Yes, it is because of all these people having access to the knowledge and the science that was housed in the Library of Alexandria is why they were able to come up with so many things. They were able to write books and able to basically said that they developed certain things in the area of science and medicine. It is because of what they found in the Library of Alexandria that have been gathered there from throughout the whole Nile River Valley by the great Africans. The last great scholar affiliated with the famed University of Alexandria was Hypatia. And I read a little bit about Hypatia. Again, I'll just repeat some of what she went through and what happened here. Hypatia was a true scientist in her own right, having gained notoriety in the fields of mathematics, physics, astronomy, and philosophy. She was born in Alexandria in the year 370 AD, some 400 years after Egypt had been conquered by the Roman army. Her father was the famed Egyptian mathematician Theon, and Hypatia enjoyed many privileges unheard of for women in classical Greek society. Hypatia was 21 years old when the university and its library was ordered destroyed by the Christian emperor Theodosius, who viewed the teachings of science, mathematics, and philosophy as antithetical to the new religion. And unfortunately, that's how ignorant and how uncouth and how uncivilized these people were. They call themselves Christian emperors and all this kind of thing and whatnot, Greek and all this thing. But in truth, they were way behind the Africans when it came to learning, when it came to civilization. And because these religious fanatics could not deal with knowledge, they prefer to uphold faith over knowledge. They were against all, became against the knowledge, and they considered anybody who was studying and anybody who pursued knowledge and learning to be on the wrong side. And you became basically somewhat close to being a criminal if you were in favor of science and learning and teaching. You were seen as an outcast or a criminal. Don't forget, in Greece, they forced Socrates to drink poison because they claimed that he was corrupting the youth with the knowledge that he brought back from Egypt. Despite the threat of personal danger, Hypatia continued to teach and publish because of her close friendship with the Roman governor. These actions angered Cyril, the Archbishop of Alexandria, and in the year 415 AD, his monks encouraged an angry mob to attack Hypatia as she was riding through town. She was pulled from her chariot and dragged into a church where she was stripped naked and the flesh was scraped from her body with oyster shells. Her corpse was burnt along with all of her writings, and Archbishop Cyril was made a saint for his dastardly deeds. Yes. For his evil deeds, he was made a saint. The destruction of the library and the University of Alexandria extinguished the flame of knowledge that had been passed on to the Greeks and Romans by the inhabitants of the Nile Valley. With this glorious light of Egypt now extinguished, the nations of Europe would stumble in darkness for more than 1,000 years before knowledge was brought to them during the Moorish conquest. Yes, and if you really study history, you will see that really it was the Moorish conquest that brought civilization. When the Moors conquered Spain, that brought civilization to Europe because all the knowledge and the civilization and science filtered from Spain into France and into the rest of Europe. And later on, Europe would also receive another boost when explorers from Europe, European explorers, started traveling and going into the Far East. People like Marco Polo and all of those people started traveling into the Far East and bringing back knowledge with them, bringing back certain things that Europe didn't have. Certain foods, certain fruits, vegetables, spices, and all these things that didn't exist in Europe were brought back from the East, including knowledge. Yes, and so we see that, as the writer said, after the destruction of the Library of Alexandria and many of the other temples and libraries throughout the Nile Valley, Europe stumbled. Europe stumbled around in the dark for more than 1,000 years until the Arabs and the Moors brought a little bit of civilization to Europe with the conquering of Spain in the year 711 AD. And the Moors, they held Spain until 1492. And folks, that is just a little bit of reading about the Library of Alexandria, but I encourage anyone and everyone to go and research it for yourselves and read it for yourselves. But be careful of those European writers because they're going to tell you some different stories. You need to read books like Introduction to African Civilizations by John G. Jackson. You need to read books like Nile Valley Contributions to Civilizations by Anthony Browder. These are the books that are going to tell you the truth. These are the books that are going to give you the true picture of what happened at that ancient time. You have many Eurocentric writers today, historians today, they're putting things online, trying to revise, trying to change history, but they can't change what has already been done. But you have many of them coming out with alternate information and trying to make Europe look good, like Europe did something really nice and they weren't all that bad. But the information is there and it speaks for itself. And it seems as if we had a caller. I think we had a call, but the caller dropped it. But we can, caller, you can still call. We still have time. You can still call in.
Line 2.
Line 2, okay. Good morning, caller, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, thank you. How are you doing?
Hey, not bad, man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I just turned on and I heard you talking about the Library of Alexandria, right?
Yes, yes, that was the topic I did with you this morning. Yes.
Yeah, I have a recent book. It's written by a guy named Islam Issa. I don't know if you have that book.
No, what is
Issa?
Islam Issa?
Yeah, that's the name of the person. I'm not sure who he is.
Oh no,
Yeah.
and what's the name of the book?
Alexandria.
Oh no.
The city that changed the world. Yeah, but I find it interesting, right now it's difficult for us who try to bring a sort of African-centered analysis and a more objective analysis to history.
Yes.
Because the way they have it written, as Van Sodi must say, you have to read between the lines to really get closer to the truth about history, But what I find interesting is that this Library of Alexandria, right? Well, you haven't been built when I think it's the Greeks, right, controlling Egypt.
Yes, after Alexander the Great conquered Egypt.
Yeah, that's when you have to be built.
But
right?
and actually, it was built on the site of an older city,
Right. But what I find interesting is that if Greece and then Rome supposed to be this major civilization, right?
Right.
But let's say Greece.
Mm-hmm.
If Greece supposed to be this major civilization, why would this most important library in the world be built in Egypt, Africa, as opposed to in Greece?
Right. Right. Exactly.
So we got to read between the lines. But this library was a library. The intention was to have a copy of all the books that were written by human beings in the world.
Right.
And in fact, the library system that is used, the foundation of the library system that is used around the world today, is based on this library system that they developed at the Library of Alexandria.
Imagine that.
And then a lot of the information that was critical to the European Renaissance, right? A lot of this information came from there. Actually, they started to reconnect to that information that they was cut off from.
Right.
But a lot of it, again, came out of there. But next to the library, Coleman, right? They also built a major resource center,
Yes.
Was built right next to
I mentioned that, yes.
Oh, you mentioned, yeah, okay. Yeah, but it's a very important thing, and, initially they were using scrolls, which, again, the whole method came from the Egyptians who started to use scrolls to write down, scrolls attached to each other, that kind of thing. They would have in the library system, but the library system that they use, again, is the one that is very much used today, that we got from them. But I'm still looking at the book, but I find it very, very interesting. Like you said, that this is the most important library in the history of humankind.
Yeah, and like you said, they had, besides the library, they had the museum, they had a dissecting room.
Yeah.
And some other rooms. I mentioned it just there right now. The name's slipping me, but I did mention it because it wasn't just the library alone. There were some other connecting buildings and other parts to it too. Yes.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad you're looking at it, and I'm glad, like I said, we have to, even those of us who are teaching in the school system and that kind of thing, we just can't take what the Europeans, even though they have all these great books called classics and whatnot, we just can't take what they have published and made available and just run with that. We have an obligation, we as African people, given if we really know our history, we have an obligation to take a second look and closer look and read between the lines when we're dealing with this information, and don't just take these books written by Europeans and go teach it just like that, like you see. Because you mentioned the Septuagint.
Oh yes, that is something that a lot of people like to run from that, But yes, but and I'm going to dedicate a program to that one of these morning. I'm going to deal with that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how soon yet I'm going to do it, but I'm going to deal with that because the Septuagint, or what is known as the Old Testament, was written right there in the Library of Alexandria.
Yeah, but if you ever get a chance to look, there's a whole National Geographic, right? It's an excellent copy. It has a whole history of the the King James or the Old Testament, well, the Bible. You have a whole history, and it's showing you all the different versions.
Okay.
It came up from the very beginning, and it naming all the different. Because people, when we talk about the Bible, we usually talk about the King James version, and people think there's only just one edition, but there's so many editions.
Yes.
And there's an interesting one about how the King James version came into being. There's a very, very interesting.
Well, Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben published a book, and that I have that book, so I'm going to be using that too. Dr. Ben published a book named The Chronology. I think that's the name of the chronology of the Bible.
Yeah.
And he takes you from from the book of the coming forth, all the way up to like the 50s or 60s when they did the last revised version of the King James Bible and all this kind of thing. But Dr. Ben takes you through all of it. He lists all the different versions that were written.
Yeah.
Yes.
Many versions. And then
and you're aware of the fact that the Septuagint was called the Septuagint because apparently it was written by 70 Hebrew scholars.
Some people say 72.
Some people, right, 72. Yes, because well, if you count the fact that there were 12 tribes, the 12 tribes were represented by six elders. There were 6 elders for each one of the 12 tribes. Then you come to you get 72. But basically there's a little question, a little discrepancy of that, because I think there were about 2 or 3 tribes that were not a part of the original group of Hebrew tribes. There is some little discrepancy with that. That two tribes were added on later, this type of thing. So. But nevertheless, I'm going to deal with that Septuagint thing and the writing of the Old Testament, because a lot of people fail to realize that book, it was commissioned. The writers were paid to sit down and write these things, and what they did is they copied all the information that they found there in the Library of Alexandria. That's what they did.
Right.
They had no writing. The Hebrew had no writings at that time. In the 12th century BC, they had no writings. They saw an opportunity. People like to say they had. Go ahead.
It's interesting that Septuagint was written in Africa.
Yes.
That they call all these scribes of all over. They were written in Africa. But Obenga, I don't know how much work you have by Obenga, but Obenga has a book that really looks at a lot of the concepts in like pyramid text and the common text. You look at a lot of the concepts, and when you look at them, you see a lot of the fundamentals you see in the Bible. You see coming right in the pyramid text and the common text. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well,
straight up Africa.
You can find that also in Karenga's book, the Book of the Coming Forth. Karenga did a translation also named the Book of the Coming Forth. You'll find a lot of them in there too. As a matter of fact, many of the maxims that I read in the morning before I start at the beginning of the program comes from Karenga's book.
Karenga's book,
But Obenga, I have one by Obenga, but it's not his that great one that he wrote named African Philosophy or something like that.
That's the one.
I've seen it, but I don't have a copy of it. No.
Yeah, man, I see a copy of that thing online for like $1,100 or something.
Yeah, well,
but you could get a cheaper. You could get a cheaper one right now. You can get a cheaper one online, But it's an excellent book, man.
Well, that is one of the things I've been trying to make my listeners aware of, is that people need to start buying these books now, because I noticed over the years they are becoming more and more expensive. And especially because what is happening is that a lot of people seem to have bought these books in years gone by and kept them, and now they're selling them back online. They're selling them back online now, and they're selling them for more money, much more money. Even the companies
that are selling them.
Because
I get book like I buy for about $17.
Yes,
is
yes.
like $700.
Right. Most of those books, when I bought a lot of those books in the 80s, those books cost like about at the max, maybe $20.
Right.
You know, now I see these books going for like $100, $75 and up.
Yeah, but
Some of them, you know.
$500.
Yeah. And the only reason why, and I see that the only reason why these books could be selling for so much is because these people know that the information is important.
Yeah, it's important, and we who have personal libraries, we got to make sure we got to do like
we got to buy these things for our children and grandchildren, man, so our children and grandchildren will have access to this information in later years, because I see where these things are going to, it's going, after a while you're not going to be able to get some of these books again. That's what it seemed like to me.
You know, all those transcripts they're talking about in Timbuktu,
Mm-hmm.
most of them, a large portion of them come from families, you know.
Yes.
Families have them who
have them
for 4 and 5 generations,
yes.
And they have them
yes.
hidden.
Yes, I've read that. I've read it. Diab talks about that. Yeah, Shekanta Diab speaks about that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we got to hold on to these books and make sure they stay within our community, within our families, and that kind of thing. But there's a lot. But we need a library system. We need really a good library in the Virgin Islands where they can really collect archival material from Virgin Islanders, and like that's not happening. There's no way people like Jean Emmanuel, Marvin Williams, Geraldo Gorty, and so forth to pass away, and nobody's interested in what is called their papers, which would include all kinds of things, not just their book collection. They will include a book collection, but a lot of other material that they have used in the past and collected in the past. Those are so important to be kept. You know?
Yes.
I mean, they kept them. They kept when the parents kept a lot of those stuff. The U.S. destroyed a good bit, but the U.S. kept a good bit too. And when you go to the archive, you can see a lot of the things that they collected, whether it be from the St. Grace River Union, and, James and Jackson, all these things. These are kind of archival materials that we make, that we possess today, that should be collected by the library.
Yes.
You know, but it's not happening. It's not happening. So we need to work on that too. On that system, our library system. Definitely we need to work on that. Anyway, give thanks, for the time.
Yes, man, and I thank you too for your input as always, as always,
Yeah.
man. Yes, good to hear from you.
All righty.
Okay, man, good, man. All the best, eh?
All right. Right.
Yes, and again, Brother Sele, reinforce the point that I always try to make. We need to start collecting these books so that our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren can have access to this information, especially by our Black writers, our African scholars, because we have some great scholars who have been writing great works, man. But I find that many of the young people today, especially here in St. Croix, seem to be, they have been turned off they from our reading the works of our great African scholars. And these are the people who bring us the truth, bring us the pertinent information. This is the reason why, up to this day, I try to get people to understand. This is the reason why a great scholar like Shekanta Diab, as much as you can go on the line now, you can go on the YouTube now and online and find a lot of information about Shekanta Diab now. But I can remember about 10 years ago, you couldn't. And most of what you found was negative. But all of a sudden things have changed around and they start, some conscious people have started putting information out there, the real information out there now. But one of the reasons why they hated Shekanta Diab so much is because he exposed them. He exposed them, especially with that Cairo symposium that was held back in 1974. Yes, it might seem like a long time ago and all that's gone in the past, but these fellows didn't forget. They're still trying to see if they could disprove, if they could discredit Shekanta Diab and a lot of the other Black writers. They continuously try. They're not going to stop. This thing is an ongoing fight. As they say, the struggle continues. These Eurocentric writers, they're not going to stop. They're always going to try in some way to discredit our African scholars. They're continuously doing it. You know, and most people are not aware because you're not aware of the writers of what they said, and you're just reading what these Johnny come lately Eurocentric writers writing about these fellows, and you tend to believe these people because they give you an air as if they're so professional and they're so knowledgeable and they know all this and they're being fair and they're being impartial, but they're not. They're continuously trying to discredit the work of our great scholars. And Shakanta, they have died in 1986. And from then to up to now, they're still trying, every so often, they're still trying to discredit this man and his writings and the things that he has put forth. Because they can't really challenge it. They can't really challenge him on scientific ground, no, on the factual grounds. So they're trying all kind of things, man. They're trying all kind of things. Most people just aren't aware of it because they have been following it. But I've been following this for the past 20 or 30 years now. That's why I could tell you this. And it's not just Shekanta Diabalon. People like Dr. Ben and others, they're trying to discredit these people. Constantly, they're trying to discredit them. But and sadly, many of our young black people today just aren't aware of our African scholars. They don't know about them. And when you try to expose them to these scholars, they're more or less averse to these people. They don't want to hear it. They more prefer to they go on YouTube and go online and listen to, and they just punch something and let somebody tell them something, because most times they're not reading anything. They just listen to a document. They listen to the vocal part of this person telling them this and telling them that. But I recognize the inaccuracies and all the false stories they come in with, because they've been doing it before the days of the internet, and that's why I know this. Before the days of the internet, they've been doing it. They've been writing in magazines and in certain books, trying to discredit the black writers. And now we have the computer where everything is online now. Oh, it's easier for them now because you don't have to pay to put anything online. You could put up anything online that you want. You don't have to pay to do that. You know, but we shall see. Time will tell. But again, hopefully sometime in the future, I'm going to deal with that Septuagint. As I told Brother Celia, I'm going to deal with this issue with the Septuagint and the writing of the Old Testament in the Library of Alexandria, because that's what they did. And I'm going to show you the things that they copied from ancient Egypt. And you read these things in the Bible, in the Old Testament, and people think that, well, these things are Jewish or Hebrew or original Hebrew things, and they come originally from the Hebrew people and all this type of thing. And actually, when you look at it, there's no such thing as a Hebrew people, really. But I don't want to get into that now because these things take a little time. And but basically, there is no, if anybody could call me and tell me a place that named Hebrew land or the country of the Hebrews. But there's no such thing. Why? Because the word Hebrew, which comes from actually the old Canaanite word Habiru, it's a nickname. That word Hebrew was basically, originally, it was a nickname or like a slang term that was used, meaning those who came over, those who crossed over. So there's really no such thing as a Hebrew or a land called Hebrew, the land of Hebrews or anything like that. But I'll say that for another time. We'll get more into that discussion. Let me just take a phone call here. Yes, good morning, caller. The caller, wow. The caller hung up, but you can call again, caller. Don't be afraid. You still call again. We still got a few minutes left. And as a quick reminder, Brother Ross will be coming on after I finish here. He will be coming on at 10 o'clock, or a few minutes after the hour of 10. He will be coming on. So those of you who want to stay tuned and listen out for Brother Ross Christopher, yes, he will be coming on this morning. And again, I just want to hail up and say good morning to all those people who posted messages online. I see my son Yusef. Yes, and I see Mr. Woodrup. I think it's Jason Woodrup. Yes, and yes, so I wanted to shout out good morning to you and Miss Cheryl Charles. Hey, I hope you're reading. I hope you're reading the book. I hope you're reading. I want to say good morning to Miss James. Yes, yes, we call her Miss James. I haven't heard the voice in quite a while. Simone James, it's a Simone James. Yes, and all the other people who chime in, Miss Brenda Rogers Booker. All I haven't heard from you for quite a while, but I would imagine that people it's a working day, and it's almost 10 o'clock in the morning, so most people are out to work. So let's take a call here. Yes, good morning, Carla, and welcome.
Mr. Kaufman.
Oh, good morning. I haven't heard the voice in such a while. I was beginning to think, I figured maybe you went over by over there by Gaza to see what was happening, but you're here with us still. That's good. That's good. It's good to hear your voice.
I guess Mr. Kaufman tomorrow is my God shrine.
Oh well, I wish you the best on that day, and I wish you many, many, many more. Yes.
With health and strength.
Good, with health and strength, of course. Yes.
Well, another time is the limit, so let me get to it. Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
I recall telling everybody, matter of fact, I did a video telling people, the fisherman have a saying, 12 days into January, if you don't see the rain, we're going to get a drought. Now, prepare people, and I have a video that backs it up. You understand? Look what we into this half, Maya. It's a crime shame that water and power, that's what I call it, water, right? Water
yes. and power. Yes.
But we don't even own the water, Mr. Kaufman. That's 7 feet. That's a crime shame. It's a crime shame that water saying they want to add 5%, but nobody is saying they want to cut their salaries on top of the poor people.
Right.
And when you look around, Mr. Kaufman, hungry dog eating raw meat, because now the people have who are forced out and not working, and here it is, they're making things harder. Look what's going on. Assassination, robberies, daylight robberies, like senseless robberies. You can't even like, what? This doesn't make sense. That is breaking into homes. I think they will come for you. That, may his soul rest in peace. In St. Croix, with the assassination with the lieutenant governor, bodyguard, police, whoever he is, was a clear message. Not even are you going to be protected, because are you continue to make us suffer. Mr. Kaufman, they give us all kind of deals, 99-year list to people, right? How about not at least letting these people build our schools, our hospitals, especially a hospital that you, me, and I, you big shot that think I lynching us all the time when money ain't got to go to. Eh? Mr. Kaufman, you see how hard taking away everything, and I tell them about the housing and the Section 8 before, But see, people don't like to listen to the messenger. They're more focused.
Well,
they don't like to listen.
we had a saying. We had a saying here, the old people had a saying here. I don't know how it was in St. Thomas, but I know here in St. Croix, the old people used to have a saying here, you're too hardened. When you don't want to listen, you're hardened. That's what they used to tell you. You're too hardened. And maybe that's what's happening to all people. All people too hardened. We don't want to listen. And it seems as if we on the road to being bamboozled again, to being messed over again. I mean, hey, heading that way, that.
Guess who's coming in? The colonizers who used to be up in the hills, now coming into our black community.
Oh, yes.
Who used to be up in the hills, now coming into our black community, buying up houses and so forth. And when they build up their big fancy house, who just on a little petal will have to be forced to get out. It's a genocide going out there. And it's in a white man, it's like a money them say, the rat race, but this is more human race, because our people who've been back.
Our people, it's our own people. Our people are becoming.
When I go to the cemetery 2 o'clock in the morning, and somebody who walking over here.
Wait, you got people going to the cemetery 2 o'clock in the morning? Wow.
And the same thing. She went to go thank her ancestors 2 o'clock in the morning. This is a Yankee. When you going to the cemetery time, who you thanking? Who you paying?
2 o'clock in the morning. I probably coming over for the second or third time.
Because In America, the water, it's right now, they have a cyber attack of water. Where your water coming from? America. Yeah? Okay. Don't listen to me. So I only talking nonsense. But too late will be the cry if I don't wake up. Okay?
Yes.
How you doing, Mr. Coffin?
I'm fine, and I'm here just listening to you, and I'm smiling in a way because not smiling after you. I'm smiling with you because you're bringing so much truth, and it reminded me of some of the things I've been saying here for years. Too late shall be the cry.
Too late will be the cry, Mr. Coffin. I'm seeing it.
Yes, I seeing it every day.
And
Every day I'm seeing it.
And I don't know like she died because we're seeing it, we're feeling it, and still, we trying to rise up from our slumber. Most of our people who dead wish they were alive today. Are we acting as if we're dead? It's just like you go in the church. They got to tell them, okay, clap. Okay, say amen. Like you said. And them who dead wish they were alive. Where's my dad?
Yes, so we're in a terrible state. We're in a terrible state.
We're down to the dark. It's a folk, and I went to depend on the other day. We only have 2 depend officers, right? And they're supposed to district St. Thomas and St. John and even Water Island. And you only have 2.
Wow.
Yeah? I don't know about St. Croix. So we get 2. What are you? You know what I'm saying? I mean, these are things our police station, we only have 2 police stations. One is in top 2 in town, one by the airport and one by the courtyard. Yeah? We got to the dark, and here it is, the big finale. Just because Jennifer will need to go to 45 million and put, ain't no problem. They just now take out another lump sum of money out of the government general fund. A thief is always a thief, but because they won't get catching the general, Mr. Portman, America got to take over this place. Just like how Trump put the TPS on top of a lot of countries, so they gotta go. It's America got to take over this place and take over everything from the book. And then we will probably unite and say, okay, because now they point somebody like we can work together. It's a shame.
I had a little song there for Mr. Trump and now too, boy. When I some news I read there, it was last week on something there when he was leaving Turkey, and they hide him away in a catering truck and thing. So I had a little song that make up Donald, they hide away in a catering truck. You're hiding away in a catering truck. Donald, my boy, man, you ought to be ashamed, 'cause you hide away in a catering truck. Yeah, man. You hide away in a catering truck. Donald, you hide away in a catering truck. I said, Donald, boy, man, you ought to be ashamed, 'cause you hide away in a catering truck. Yes, Ninja, how it is?
That was nice. I felt like I get so related for my birthday. That's all good.
Okay, cameraman, it's been nice hearing from you. Always. And we at the top of the hour now. So you have a nice week, a happy and safe week and weekend. And birthday. Yes, how could I forget that? Oh my goodness. Oh yes. Okay, man. Okay. Yes. And folks, just like that, we are at the top of the hour. And don't forget, Ross will be coming on. Ross Christopher will be coming on in a few minutes. But for right now, it's time for me to head out of town. And I just want to say to everyone to have a happy and safe week and weekend until we meet next week here for some more Around the Table here on WSTX AM 970 on your radio dial. Good morning.
Stand up for decency. Stand up for compassion.